Right, hello everybody, it's another weekend and we're back at it again, and due to the rather disastrous results last time, my job for today is to completely replace this master cylinder and also the slave cylinder down there. So I've got new parts for both and we're going to just completely change the entire system and then drain it with new fluid. So let's see how we get on. Right, so here we have our slave cylinder, and as you can see the boot is rather perished. I'm not quite sure what's happened here because this really isn't very old at all. I think I did this job about maximum 6-7 years ago, so really it should last a lot longer than that. But this was a cheap part and I have learned my lesson with that. I have a suspicion that what happened here was the seals on this part were just never good right from the beginning, and there was probably just a tiny bit of brake fluid leaking past the seals. And brake fluid is very corrosive to rubber, and what I think just happened is that the brake fluid that was there just gradually ate away the rubber and basically caused it to fail. And then at that point, of course, moisture and dirt and everything else can get in there and make the problem worse. So I don't know what condition the actual piston is in there or any of the seals, but I'm not going to chance it. I'm just going to take the whole lot out, put a new one in of a better quality, and hopefully that will solve the problem. Right, so my plan of action is I'm going to undo this union nut. I've already undone this retaining nut that holds this loop of piping here just to make this easier. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this transfer pump and I'm going to pump all the old fluid out of the system, including what's in the reservoir, and then we can take the slave and master cylinder off, replace them with the new ones, and then we'll rebleed the system at the end. Right, you can see I've now fitted this tube onto the end of the union nut, and that then goes into this transfer pump, which goes into this receptacle. And now what I'm going to do is just open this cap to release the pressure, and then we'll just gradually pump the fluid through. There it goes. Seems like there was an airlock in there because it didn't move for the first few minutes. Now it's all just draining through. Right, so that's pretty much empty now. I'll just pump it a little bit more just to get the last of it out, or as much of it out as possible, and then we'll rebleed the system again at the end. Right, so the next job is to get this slave cylinder off. Should be, well, this bottom bolt is a little bit of a pain because the access is a bit limited here, but I'm going to see what I can do with my sockets. Right, so slave cylinder is off. There is the offending article there. So these are the bolts that hold the slave cylinder in place, and I must say I'm very glad that last time I did this job I put a little bit of grease on these so they didn't start corroding, and it made it so much easier to get these off this time than it was the last time I did this job, so that was a proper win. So it's quite difficult to film. I don't know whether this is going to come out or not, but if you look down inside there, it is quite dirty in there. So I think quite a lot of dirt and stuff has got in through this perished rubber. And just look at this. Look at how it just falls apart. I mean, it's completely and utterly knackered. And this is, as I say, this is only a few years old. I mean, that really is atrocious quality. Right, so let's put the new slave cylinder on, and then we can tackle the master cylinder. So this is an Exidy part. So it's not OEM, but Exidy is pretty well renowned as being good quality, so it should be good. It even comes with some grease to put on the end of the spline, so that's a nice little touch. Right, so one of the things I'm going to do here before I fit this is I'm just going to take this bleed nipple out. God, that's tight. And what I'm going to do is just put some grease on this thread, and the idea being that it'll stop air from leaking through it when I need to bleed this. And I'm just going to put some of that around the threads. I don't think you'll ever get a perfect seal, but it should be a little better like this than with the threads not greased. Okay. So I put a little bit of the grease in here just to lubricate the bottom of this pin. Oh my god. I'll just lubricate the bottom of the pin. That's probably the easiest way to do this. And then we can pop that in there. Come on. There we go. Alright, so that should lubricate the bottom part. And then we've got a little bit more grease left, which we'll put on the top. It's basically just to stop it from squeaking. Right, it goes in there. That's tight. Right, so slave cylinder is now successfully fitted. I haven't fitted the union nut yet because I'm going to draw new fluid through with that first before I fit it, and then we'll do a traditional bleed at the end where you step on the pedal and then draw any air out of the system. Right, so the slave cylinder was actually the easy part. This is actually going to be much more fiddly because we have one bolt under there, which is not too difficult to get to. That is doable. But then the other bolt is actually on the other side of the bulkhead, and it's right up under the pedal. So that's really going to be a bit of a pain to access. So the last time I did this job, I did actually kind of film the process, although I didn't go into huge amounts of detail. And some of the comments that I got were basically chastising me for the fact that I didn't show the nut on the inside at the top of the clutch pedal. And the reason I didn't is because it's awkward to get in here. I am literally lying on my back with my bum on the seat and my head underneath the pedals, and there you can see there's the nut that we need to undo on the inside. This is the top of the clutch pedal, and that you can just see in there is the master cylinder. So there you go, I'm filming it. That is the nut you need to get to, and I hope you appreciate how difficult it is to actually film angles like this, because it's really hard to get in here. Right, so now we can remove this union nut. A little bit awkward, but we can get in there, I think. There we go. That's great. Oh, that's really rusty. Wow. Oh no, that's so corroded. Stuff. Yeah, that'll probably help. That's fine. There we go. Will I get it? Oh, I got it. So I think we're all loose now. We should be able to take this out. There we go. Right, so here's our master cylinder, and it doesn't look in too bad shape really. As I said, I did refurbish this only about 7 or 8 years ago, and it hasn't been leaking from the end. But I do wonder about that black stuff. I think if particles of black stuff are ending up in the fluid, I don't think it can mean that things are working well. So I think it's for the best that I just change this out with a new one, and hopefully that will stop the black bits in the fluid, but we'll see. Right, so here's our replacement. This is a genuine Mazda part. Look how nice and shiny that is. That is too beautiful. It doesn't come with a little gasket that the other one had on it. Do I put this other gasket on here? I mean, I guess it can't hurt, right? I guess it just stops the two bits of metal from corroding onto each other. I don't know. And then we've just got to slide this one back into place. Now I remember from last time when I did this job, you can just see in there, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's a little stick which pushes in the plunger of the master cylinder, and when you take that out, the stick falls to the bottom, and you need to basically position it so that it goes into the right place, because it's got to go right into the middle of that hole there. Right, I've stuffed a cloth in there, and I think that should be about the right position. So now I'm going to just try and fit that new master cylinder, and we'll see what happens. At least there's no fluid to go messing everywhere now. Good. Right, now where did I put those nuts? The one from that. So I'm going to put a bit of grease on this as well. Really just want to prevent this from corroding too much more than it already has. Yeah, that's the way. That'll do. There we go, the nut is successfully put in place. And yes, I know there is corrosion on this, but quite honestly, getting in there to try and clean all that off, I don't think I'm going to be attempting that right now. I do have to take the dashboard off at some point, so maybe the chance to do that will come at that point. But for now, that corrosion can just stay where it is. It might look pretty bad on camera, but I can see that it's just surface corrosion. I don't think there's any structural problems there. Right, so now we need to do up this union nut. I'm going to put a bit of grease on that too. Alright, union nut is on. That was pretty slow because you could only turn the spanner a tiny amount in this little gap, but got there in the end. So, next step is bleeding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this up with fluid, and then I'm going to attach my pump to the other end and try and draw fluid through the lines. There's going to be quite a lot of air that needs to come through, and it's a very long line. I don't know why they did this, but it goes all the way down to that side and then all the way back and then down and through those loops. Not really sure what the purpose of that was, but basically we've got to get fluid all the way back through the line to the end. Not much happening at the moment. I can feel that there's pressure in the line. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Yeah, it's dropping down at the top. Need to just make sure that it doesn't empty. Alrighty, so I've drawn quite a lot of fluid through now and been topping it up. Used basically the rest of that pot. So quite a lot of fluid has come through now, but I'm just going to keep going now. I've got this new brake fluid that I just bought, so this is nice and fresh. And I'm just going to cycle that through a little bit more, just to make sure we have no more bubbles in the system. I don't think there's too many bubbles in that anymore. It's a very small reservoir, so you've got to top it up pretty quickly. I would imagine that we're good now, I think. Right, so we've siphoned through a bunch of new fluid now, so I think I'm pretty confident that there's no air in the system anymore. And it's now pretty much stabilized. It's full. I've used about half a bottle, so quite a lot. So now we've got a tricky bit where we've got to get the union seated into the slave cylinder as quickly as possible without losing too much fluid in the process. Right, well, union is in. That was a very fiddly job. I don't know why, but for some reason the thread just didn't want to take and there was just fluid leaking all over the place. So a little bit stressful, but got there in the end. So the final thing we need to do now is just do the final bleed using the bleed nipple. In the meantime though, I'm just going to do up that little loop of pipe and just secure that. Okay, so to bleed the system, I think I'm just going to do this the old-fashioned way. I did buy this, which is a bleeding kit, and it's a little bit simpler than the ones I've used before, and it's literally just a pipe that goes into a pot. And what you do is you put some brake fluid in the bottom of the pot, and then at the end of this pipe is a one-way valve, and you basically just push fluid through into the pot, and it should be as simple as that. So just as an aside, if you ever wanted to know what actually happens to paintwork when you get brake fluid on it, all you have to do is look down here and you can see a right bloody mess. This was like this when I got the car, so this must have leaked at some point in the past. And as you can see, it's just completely ruined this paintwork here. I probably should actually refinish this, but getting in here is a bit tricky. What I might do is just put some sort of, I don't know, anti-rust kind of stuff on there just to stop it corroding more. But yeah, it really does make a mess of things. That's why you've got to clean it up as soon as you notice. because if you leave it for any length of time, this is the result. Alrighty, so we are now at the point where we should be able to just do the last bleed of this with the bleed nipple. I've recruited my mate Logan. There he is. And Logan is going to basically pump the clutch when I tell him, and I'll open the bleed nipple and hopefully we'll expel the last of the air into this line. Alright, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, if you could just put your foot down on the pedal.
All the way?
Yeah, all the way down.
Yeah, that's very soft.
Yeah, it will be to begin with.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Okay, I'll just do that up again, and then if you could just lift up.
Yeah.
And then down again.
Yeah.
There we go. And then lift up.
Yeah.
And then down.
Okay. Ah, there we go. They're getting more pressure.
Now we're getting there, yeah. Okay, up.
Yeah.
Down.
That's feeling better.
Up. Down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt
Yeah, there was some air coming through there.
Yeah, I felt the release.
Okay, up. And then down.
Yeah.
Yes, oh, this is so much better.
Yep.
Down.
Yep.
Up. Down. Up. Down. I think we're good, dude. Just pump it a few more times there. Yeah, it's looking good. Alrighty, so we've been pumping this for a little bit and I think all of the air has come out. We did see a few air bubbles, but it's looking nice and consistent now. So I think we are good. We'll just get the car down off the jack stands and just give it a bit of a test. Alrighty, so just drop the car back down off the stands and taking it for a quick spin, and the clutch feels much better now. It's taking at the correct point on the pedal. Before it was taking almost as soon as you lifted your foot off the floor, which is much too low. So everything feels good now. The pedal has really nice positive feel to it. So yeah, I think that is job done. We'll see you on the next one. Cheerio.